Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And welcome back to another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you, I have Kerie Logan with me today. And this woman has accomplished more in her life than like many of us do in like 10 lifetimes. The amount of knowledge and experience and mentorship that she's grown through, you're going to be absolutely amazed at what this woman can do by helping people. So Kerie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Brad. Thank you for asking.
Oh, no. Listen, this is such a pleasure for me. But as always, let me ask you this. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? A little bit about, where you grew up, what was the complement of your family, and what was it like to be Kerie as a kid?
So I was born in the Bay Area, California, and I was born in Richmond, California. And it was really why I really appreciated growing up there for the part of my elementary school childhood is everyone played with everybody. There was no discrimination. There was no judgment. It was beautiful. It was really nice. And why I say that is when my parents divorced, my mom moved to Marin County. And Marin County is, not to be rude or disrespectful, it's very snobby. It's very stuffy and uptight. It was challenging for me because I couldn't understand or comprehend why people would discriminate against one another. And I mean people that were less than them, financially less than them. And so a good example is when I was in high school, a lot of my friends, when they turned 16, they got a BMW or a Mercedes. They got their parents' credit card. They got a gas card. It was extreme wealth. And I would take the bus to school, or I would walk several miles to get back home. And I even lied when I was a freshman in high school, said I was 17 and I got a job at Burger King. Yeah, exactly. Because I had to help out. I had to start paying my mom rent. I had to buy my clothing, my toiletries and stuff. It was really a tough time, but I appreciate that. I really do. It taught me some really good, core values and worth ethics. It was really important. So I don't look back at that as anything negative. I actually look at it as, as a blessing. Because I didn't know, I wasn't invited to parties or anything like that. And I was not willing to conform, and I'm not a people pleaser. When I say that, I wasn't willing to give up my sense of self to please other people that I just couldn't relate to. And I saw just how people were mean and petty and just not very kind. And even some teachers I saw that just, weren't very great. Now, I'll give a good example of that. My Mr. Thomas, my English teacher, and of course we remember those names, Mr. Thomas. I became best friends with a basketball player, and he was a really cool guy. And I told him, I don't think he likes me. And I said, he grades me so unfairly on my paper and I can prove it. Do you want to do a test with me? And he said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to write your paper and you write my paper and we're going to see what the grade is. And when we got the grade, he was like, oh my God. His paper got a C-, my paper got an A+. It was just, I know you're laughing at it. But
no, it may. No, I've seen it happen, and it's too bad that there's features like that because most of them aren't.
No, like that. I know, and so my childhood was really teaching me to honor myself and be authentic, regardless of how other people act or behave or treat one another. And I really wanted to find quality people. My mindset was I'd rather have a small handful of really close people that I know care about me and can depend on me than a group of people that just don't give a rip and would never be there for me during a crisis.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I still was more of a people pleaser. I only had a few close friends and I treasured those people. I think they did. Actually, 4 of them, we still make sure that we see each other 30, 40 years later. So, but yeah, no, I get that. So obviously you had to work and everything else. So I usually would ask the question of, did you do any kind of extracurricular activities while you were in school? But it sounds like you were working.
I was working. Yeah. I mean, I was working. And then in the summertime, I babysitted a lot of people's children. One time I watched a kid for a whole summer and people thought that that was my child. And I'm like, no, I'm babysitting.
Oh my God, you became that was the word nanny right there. So, all right. So then you got through school. Obviously you did well. Where did you go to university first time?
I went to College of Marin, and that's where I studied photography and psychology.
Photography and psychology. As a amateur photographer myself, it actually does make more sense once you get into it. Yeah, those two actually go together. But most people, because most people would be thinking, okay, this is, photography on the left brain side and psychology on the right brain side. Yeah, that's super interesting that you did that. That's awesome.
Yes. And I realized 2 important things in doing that with the photography side, I met a lot of starving photographers that literally were honest with me and said, it's quite a bit of a struggle. You need to have a second job. And so I appreciated and respected their advice. Then on the psychology side, I really liked it, but I felt like there was something more that was missing. And it brought me to where I am today, because all the things that I've achieved, wanting to find the missing pieces. So I had an unfortunate situation where something happened with my mom and I had to move out and drop out of college. I couldn't complete it. So I had to go into work full time. Like most people, you try to make ends meet, put a roof over your head and feed yourself. I didn't get my first car until I was 19. I had to buy that. Right. So like my friends were, I got a brand new car, the gas card. So
where were you working?
I ended up doing a few jobs where I used to work for Fetzer Vineyards. Have you heard of that wine?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I worked for them when it was actually a family-owned company. And then Brown Foreman, who owns Southern Comfort, Jack Daniels, it's a big international company. They bought them. And so I ended up working for them for about almost 5 years. And then I had the opportunity to do where I actually moved up to Oregon and I worked for Willamette Valley Vineyards, and I was the sales rep manager for the whole state of Oregon and Washington. And I did super, super good. I was the first person to start the wine tasting stewards in Costco. I was able to get the Riesling wine to be number 1 in a certain grocery store that's local here in Oregon. And I did great. But the bad thing is when 9/11 happened, the economy tanked. I mean, it tanked everywhere. And I was running out of my second round of unemployment benefits. And I was going to become homeless. And I was a single mom at the time. I was going to become homeless. And I went and talked to a family friend and I said, I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. And I don't know if you believe in this, Brad, but she gave me a reading and she said, you've done everything you need to do here in Oregon. You're going to move back to California and the perfect job is waiting there for you. And I looked at her and I'm like, I can't do that. I can't afford to move back there. It's just way too expensive. And she said, no, what you're meant to do is back there and the job will be handed to you. And so like most people, you don't want to take their advice because that's a huge leap, a huge transition. But when it got closer and closer to me literally being evicted and having to be homeless and live in a shelter with my daughter, I was like, I just can't do that. I can't. So I called a family friend in the Sacramento area and I told her my situation and I asked if I could stay with them and look for work. And she said yes. So the state actually helped me put myself stuff in storage. They paid for it. And I loaded anything I could in my car and I drove back to California. And a week later, I got a call about my resume that was on monster.com. And the guy wanted to meet me. He's like, hey, can you be here in about an hour and a half? I totally want to meet you and talk to you about this job. And all they said on the job was they wanted someone with sales and marketing experience and wanted to make the world a better place. And I was like, that's me.
Absolutely.
And so when I got there, it was positive changes hypnosis. And I was blown away. When my mom divorced my dad, she took a spiritual route. She really struggled with the Catholic faith and went into spirituality. And so she became a member of the Inner Peace movement that was in Berkeley, California. So I grew up with meditation, guided visualization, angels, giving card readings, working with your spirit guides and stuff. I mean, I found it so fascinating. And these group of women that would come together, it was beautiful. It was just so nice. It was a big difference. And so I told him, hey, I know all about hypnosis and meditation. I believe in that stuff. It's so cool. He's giving me the tour of this new facility. And I'm sitting in the conference room and I show him my binder. It's like 3 inches thick of all my accomplishments and letters of recommendation. I said, hey, you want to see my portfolio? And he's like, oh, no. You already got the job. I knew I was going to hire you the minute I read your resume. You're hired. And I was just like, what? And the really cool thing is the owner wanted me to get trained in hypnotherapy. He was going to pay for it and everything. And I said, okay. And so I got training in the weight loss, stop smoking, cancer, childbirth, the personal change, addictions. I got my nutrition background through coaching. And in 2004, I got the award for the best coach of the year.
Amazing.
Yeah. And they had 65 centers. I mean, they even recorded me to show people this is how you do these presentations to people about nutrition, which was really cool. Michael Porter was my district manager and we became best buds because he loved my spiritual side. And one day I came out and I kind of confessed to him about what I really do with the clients, why I was so good. And here's the hard part. He said, Kerie, you can't do that. We're a franchise now. You go to McDonald's, you expect the same exact burger that you would get in a different state or a different country. But you're like, oh, I got this secret sauce. It's going to be perfect for you. He said, you just can't do that. So he was very, and it was nice. He was like, I've met hundreds of hypnotherapists, but I've never met anyone like you. And as soon as I knew about your spiritual side, he was like, that's the cherry on top. He's like, you are too good for this place. You need to have your own business. And so he gave me $500 worth of web development software and said, start your business online. He said, start it. He's like, you can't advertise hypnosis for 2 years because, you have that agreement.
Yeah.
But you can say meditation. He said, go for it. He was all for it.
Wow.
Because he knew that I'm intuitive and I'm an empath. And sometimes I can just pick up on things and I can read people and they'll be like, how did you know that? Or why would you say that? And it would just come out of me. I knew what the person needed to change. Or the better way to put it is, what speaks to me, whether it's my angels or guides, whatever, is knew exactly what would help this person. And I follow it and I listen to it. And it's never been wrong. It's always been really nice and very kind, helping people. And so the kicker is, it was the day before Thanksgiving, and I got in a disagreement with the receptionist. And I went to my manager and I said, I think she's trying to get me fired. And she said, actually, she is. And here's your final check. Yep. And I looked at her, Brad, and I was like, what? You can't do this to me. I'm the best one here. I've got like 3 months of clients booked with you guys. Can't we work this out? And she said, no, because she's family and you're not. And the owner of the store was her sister. And because I wasn't family, I had to go. And so
the owner of the store,
yep,
the owner of the franchise.
So when you buy a franchise, so like Taco Bell,
yeah,
owned by someone local, because it was a franchise. So the one person that was in the Bay Area had 4 different centers. And her sister worked at one as a receptionist at one of the locations. And she was the one that I got in a disagreement with. But here's the key important thing is when I got home, I prayed and I was like, God, if this is my calling, my gift that everyone says is my calling, because I love what I do and I'm good at it, give me a sign that's so clear I can't mistake it. Give me a sign. And so when I finished praying, I called that woman that got me fired. I left her a voicemail and I thanked her for firing me. And I said, I'm going to look back at this one day as a blessing in disguise. So thank you. I forgive you. I hold no bitterness towards you. The very next day, Thanksgiving, a client that became friends with me came over and she was like, I am so sorry this happened to you. I don't understand why they're doing this. You are so talented and I want to help you out. I've been sitting on this nest egg and I want to give you this gift, no strings attached. And she handed me a Thanksgiving card and inside the card was a check for $10,000.
Whoa.
And she said, I want you to start your own business. And when I told Michael Porter what happened, he said, Kerie, the universe had to kick you in the butt because you were so loyal and dedicated, you would not have left on your own. And he was right. And now, I help people all over the globe. I've made a meditation for a Buddhist monk.
Oh, wait. That's like, you made a meditation for a Buddhist monk whose the Buddhism is all based in meditation.
Yeah, I've worked with a Catholic nun that had PTSD and in 2 sessions, it was gone. And she said to me one time, she's like, do you know God talks to you? And I was like, how do you know? And she said, because when I was sitting here in the chair and you were talking to me, everything you said and described, I saw before you said it. She said, it was like you were holding my hand, walking with me. And I said, I was, because I close my eyes, I listen, and I say what they want me to say to you. And it just comes out. You and I were connected and we were one, and they knew exactly what you needed to change and to heal. And it worked. And I said, so, don't question it. Just go for it. So I guess you could say I'm an intuitive hypnotherapist because I've gotten to the place I don't use scripts anymore. I mean, I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. I know what to say. And it's kind of like, I think about it as baking a cake. Everyone is different. Some like chocolate, some like vanilla, some need metaphors. Some people need parts therapy or inner child work or future pacing. And there's all these different techniques that can support a person. So you got to find the right mixture. that's going to give them relief. And there's even generational trauma. I mean, that's a huge one I've been diving into right now of how to clear generational trauma in people. I did a podcast episode where I actually did a trade with a podcaster. And I said, because he was fascinated with what I do and he wanted to focus on money. And so I did the coaching with him and I said, okay, I'm going to make you a custom because you have generational trauma around money. And what it was is he grew up seeing his dad always make bad choices with money, bad investments. And his grandfather did the same thing. And he picked up that habit, that belief, that mentality where he was sabotaging himself. And so when I cleared that in his subconscious mind, all these opportunities of money came in. He wasn't stuck in fear or lack anymore. He was satisfied and content with money. And he had a beautiful relationship now with money. And I know it was amazing. It's pretty cool how it works, Brett.
So that's interesting. You started in hypnotherapy. I mean, obviously, you got a couple of years of psychology classes and experience in sales, which is pretty much psychology. I can give you an instance of that. But then all of a sudden, you went from hypnotherapy. But there's a lot of other techniques on your website and in your bio, NLP. So my question to you,
training through them too. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So that's where there's parts therapy, there's future pacing, there's directing, building rapport, negotiating. There's all kinds of things in NLP.
Yeah. And I had somebody else that did NLP, and if I can remember who it was, I'll put a link up there for those watching YouTube. Did you start adding on to your, let's call it a repertoire, due to the fact that there were people that you couldn't help, and this was a way for you to, I can't find a solution for this person. I need another skill. And then you add another skill. Is that how that goes about? Or did everything just kind of, did you just learn all this stuff in one foul swoop and now you've just been honing your skills?
I'm a person that loves to learn.
Okay.
And before I got hired as a hypnotherapist, I was reading books about meditation. I was reading stuff about creative visualization. I was listening to dived into a lot of spiritual stuff. I tried to get as much information as I could in as many books that I could learn or audiobooks that I could listen to. And I think what made me really go down the path of mental health, because I took like kind of a detour in a way where I ended up having a child with someone that was narcissistic. When you have that experience, you got to find a way out, or else you're going to keep attracting that same exact person over and over and over. And so I dived into educating myself about the different types of narcissism and toxic behaviors. At one point when I was in the relationship, a psychologist said, "Do you know your ex is a narcissist?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I looked it up, and the first common one was the grandiose. And I was like, no, he doesn't fit that profile. He's nerdy and shy and drives a violet Kia. It's just like, no, he's not that way. So I dismissed it like most people. He was a covert. And those ones are quiet and shy and very dangerous. And so I like to say he was my greatest teacher. He really was. And I learned to find compassion and forgiveness through my wanting to learn about him. How was he created? How, what are the toxic behaviors? So then when he would act out, I don't take it personally anymore. I wouldn't, because I understand the way his brain is wired. And it took me down the path of learning how to communicate with difficult people. And it's hard because when you deal with someone that is narcissistic or toxic, they're not solution oriented. They're all about themselves. And so there are ways that you can talk to them and can be very effective. I'm the author of The Undetected Narcissist. I'm Angela Meyer. I did the podcast for 3 years of The Undetected Narcissist. I did a 3-part series about that. Can a narcissist change? Because I've actually helped some narcissist people become better human beings because they wanted to be. And the cool thing is when I've done my public speaking presentations, I've had narcissist people come up and actually thank me for helping them better understand themselves and their brain and how they were created and how to communicate. And the coolest thing they all said, every single one that's come up, is they can feel when they are slipping from their frontal cortex brain into the lizard limb, the survival brain. They can feel that happening, that shift. And so what I would tell them to do is that's self-awareness, and that's beautiful. You should be so proud of yourself that you are self-aware. Now, would you like a suggestion? I don't offer it. I say, would you like a suggestion, of what to do? And of course, a lot of them were like, yes, what can I do? And I said, so when you feel yourself slipping, and let's say you get in an argument with your wife or significant other, say to that person, I'm getting really triggered right now, and I care about you. And I don't want to say or do anything that's going to damage or destroy this relationship. So I need to step away and calm down because you're important to me. And this relationship's important to me. And I said, if anyone said that to me, I'd be like, cool, thank you. You're making that choice to take the high road instead of the low road.
All right. On this topic, because I don't usually like to do this because I like my stuff evergreen. But I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
Yep.
They're both yes or no questions. And I want you to answer yes or no to each one of them. One of them, well, if you answer yes to one of them, the next one is going to be mute. But this is March. This is the middle of March, 2025. Like I said, I like things to be evergreen, so we'll just take this one a little bit. Is our current president a narcissist?
100% yes.
Is our current president a dangerous narcissist?
100% yes, because we are disposable.
Okay, that's like I said, I don't want to go political, but I was very, very interested in that because there's so many different opinions on what's going on. I do believe he's a narcissist. I don't believe he's dangerous. That's just me. That's just my opinion. And I can back it up. That's it. That's it. I'm stopping. Okay. All right. So I've actually got 3 or 4 other episodes on women that have gone through relationships with narcissism or narcissistic. Going back real quick. So Angela Meyer, is that the pseudonym or is Kerie Logan the pseudonym?
Yeah, no, my real name's Kerie Logan. I picked that name because I just didn't want I didn't tell my family that I wrote that book for probably like a year or 2. And when I finally came out and told my younger brother what I wrote, he was like, oh my God, good for you. I was afraid that he was just going to be like, no, why'd you do this? But he was very positive and supportive. But I was nervous at first to be like, no, that's me, dude. I'm talking all about narcissism and trying to educate people about trauma bonding relationships and why everyone should be trauma informed. The area about the autism in my bio is my son has autism. He has taught me a lot because he got traumatized by the whole experience. So he developed what you would call PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance. A lot of people don't know about that because it's not in the DSM-5, but it is under the umbrella of autism. My theory is when it comes to attachment styles, most children have a secure attachment with their parents. All right. When the parent, and this happens to a lot of kids, especially autistic kids. If a parent doesn't know the child has autism, the child can then develop what you call an anxious attachment style because the parent's really confused. I don't know how to communicate with this kid. I don't know how to connect with this child. Because for a lot of kids that have autism, in the beginning, some of them are nonverbal. They can't talk. And my son was that way. So what happened with my son is when someone is authoritarian and trying to force this child to do something that it doesn't want to do and they can't communicate properly, this kid can learn not to trust authority figures.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this, it's where the child has to mask. And a lot of people don't know about masking. And then let's be honest, Brad, how many of us mask? All of us.
Yeah, at one point or another, there's always a situation where you feel you got to put a mask on.
It's like, I hate it when you go to the grocery store and someone says, "Oh, how are you today?" You're not going to say, "Oh, my day's crappy." You're going to be like, "Oh, I'm okay." And you're lying.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, the funny thing is that my grandfather did that my whole life. Every time he greeted me, "Hey, how are you? How are you?" And so I picked it up and I still do it today, but I really try very hard to be sincere. I consciously have found that I get sincere. When I talk to somebody, I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm sincere and I really want to know how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And I've turned it around. I've come to the point where I'm like, those people that I care about, I really look right at them and I make sure that they understand that no, this is a sincere question. And I do really want to know. But some of the others, people that you see on the street, the Uber driver, hey, how you doing? And it's a throwaway. And I make sure that they realize it's a throwaway. No. And it drives me insane. And I hear it come out of my mouth and I'm like, do you really care how they are? You don't. But I think it's more sociological than psychological.
Yeah.
It's that sort of, yeah. Is that what you think? You have this amazing repertoire of titles. Just looking at one of the profiles is empowerment strategist, therapist, spiritual advisor. And you covered the empowerment strategist and the spiritual advisor. Author, we got that. Blogger, of course. Public speaker and podcaster.
Yep.
We've covered all that, except for therapist is a very clinical definition. And so my next question is, did you ever get a chance to go back to school?
I took a lot of courses and I'm working on finishing up this one course and getting licensed in this as a trauma specialist, trauma recovery therapist. I forget what the exact title is, but I'm working on completing that and getting that, because the hard part that my husband has discovered and a lot of other people have discovered is I've learned take so many courses and so much stuff to, let's say, help my child and help people that I work with, and also to help me because I was traumatized by the whole experience, is I can sit down with a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and I can talk on the same exact level. And it freaks my husband out. He's like, "I don't know how you do this. You're so smart." And I told him, I said, that's my dilemma is, yeah, I could go back and finish my degree and stuff. And, it would take a few years, but I don't want to do that. I just don't feel it. And because I don't want to be a social worker. I don't want to be a counselor. And, in some ways, yes, I am a therapist. A lot of the things that I talk about and discuss with people, but I look at it is, and this is the hard, and I think this is why I steered away from psychology is it's so easy to put someone in a box. It's so easy to label someone and just put that sticker on them. And to me, I don't like labels. I really don't. And I don't like to put a person in a box. And I like to look at it as everything someone is struggling with is just temporary. It's not permanent. And there are, to me, there can be solutions out there to help you find things. And it's weird because I do free consultations with people over the phone, and I can talk to someone for about 10, 15 minutes. And a lot of them say, "I've been in therapy for years, but you nailed me in 10 minutes. How do you do that? You just got me like that." And I have a knack for that ability. I don't like it when, here's a good example. Someone that I really care about, I convinced them to get into therapy to try to start EMDR. And I know this therapist. She's actually a friend of mine.
Okay, let's just define EMDR before you go.
EMDR is the form of trauma therapy. It's eye rapid movement desensitization. You're looking at either a light bar or someone's finger, and they go back and forth, back and forth. It's really cool if you understand the science behind it. When you get traumatized and you go to sleep at night, if your brain can't process that whole traumatic experience properly, it gets stuck. Is what I understand. Those memories, it gets stuck. The trauma gets stuck. And what EMDR does, and I've actually done it several times myself with the person that's a therapist, that's my friend. Mm-hmm. You relive those memories, but you're looking at it from an outside perspective, as if you're watching a movie on the screen.
Yep.
And your eyes are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you're processing it and you're watching it. And it's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, I'll give a good example where when I had it done for me, there's a family member of mine that was very abusive. And when my older brother died, that person was there helping with the estate. And when I saw them, I was like, hey, how you doing? You look great and everything. It's nice to see you. And they went over to my younger brother and they were like, what's wrong with her? Is she on drugs? Because I wasn't like hiding and I wasn't like, oh God, he's here. I wasn't negative or complaining or anything. I was just like, I am free of you, dude. You know, all the things you did in the past, it just doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. And that's why I really dived into the trauma part, is because when we don't clear ourselves of that stuff, that person can live rent-free in our mind and even be dead. And they're wreaking havoc on our life.
I get that. Interesting that it sounds like ARDM. EMDR is the result comes from a same thing that I had gone through with some trauma myself, where after this situation basically was seeing chaplains. I was in the military, seeing chaplains and other people I'm going through, and all of a sudden what they made us do, and it was a experimental therapy where they're doing everything possible to get ahead of PTSD. And so they did everything possible, like, oh, you've just been through this, we're going to throw you into this program and see how it works. And it was just kind of what they were very particular about, who they put in it. And basically what they did was they made us tell the story of what happened. They made us write it. They made us tell it again. They made us like tell it backwards and over again. So I must have told the story 100 times before I left country. And then you wrote it 50, 60 times. Then got into another station, and that was another 200-300 times that I had to tell the story. And then, you know what I mean? To the point where, just like you said, it is exactly the way you mentioned that was the same thing.
Yep.
It's a movie. I'm so distanced from it that I could talk about it freely without any issues. And I don't get any...
You're not getting
flashbacks. I'm not getting triggered. I'm not getting flashbacks. Yeah, nothing. Because it's so... I think about it the same way I think about my favorite movie. You know? I don't like going through it again. You know, that's the whole thing. But it's on the same wavelengths, you know? So
right. That's the hard part, is a lot of people think that story defines them.
Right.
And that it's a part of who they are. And some people use their story for sympathy. You know, they use it to get something from another person. And
from manipulation.
And it's sad. And there's been moments where I remember one time this woman, I was working with her. She was in a lot of pain. And she was wondering why she couldn't get out of pain. And I said, well, I'm going to ask you this question, and please don't take it wrong, but I need to ask you this. I said, I think why you haven't been getting out of pain is because you're invested in it. Because you know, and I know that when you do recover from the pain, you're going to have to go back to work and you don't want to go back to work. So, am I correct? And she looked at me like, oh my God. I mean, it's like I read her like a book.
I've been found out.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I talk to people that have been through similar situations that I was in. And I was like, well, tell me about it. You go, I can't even think about reliving it. And I was wondering if that's the thing, you know what I mean? If they would go through what I went through, would they have the same experience, or are there different types of people where no, if he had to keep telling him that would actually ruin them? So to me, I thought about the people that weren't picked and the people that were. And the common denominator seemed to be that my whole life, I've been able to compartmentalize.
Right.
My whole life, I've been able to compartmentalize. I like, go to school, leave it at school, go to church, synagogue, whatever. I leave it there. Whatever happened there, stayed there.
Yeah.
And I could literally compartmentalize my whole life. You know what I mean? That's the way it's been. I could be really upset one minute and then, okay, I'm done. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering if somehow that was recognized or that was like thought about before of people before they were like put into this type of therapy. What do you think?
Well, the biggest thing I think is it was giving you and granting you the opportunity to really focus on that story. And after a while, you get tired of it.
Yeah.
You literally get tired of it and you realize this isn't serving me anymore. It's kind of like you have this aha moment of, okay, I can let this go. I've written this 100 times. I told my story 200 times. And each time you're telling it, you're diffusing it. And that's one thing a lot of people don't realize about trauma was they think about the reactions are going to be the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and there's even flop. But there's one a lot of people don't talk about, and that's called friends. And the friends one is where someone is telling their story to whoever they can. And they'll think of you as crazy. It's like you meet someone and they start telling you this whole horrible trauma bonding story. And you think, oh my God, they're nuts. They're really not. That's the trauma speaking. And they're doing that because they want help. They want solutions. They want to understand why this happened to them. And people think of those people as being crazy, but they're really trying to find a solution.
What do you find is the common denominator of the people that come to you for coaching or for any of this stuff? What is the one more popular problem or solution that people are looking for when they come to you?
I think it's when they really feel stuck. They just feel stuck and they don't know what to do. I'm usually what I'm the last resort. And it's kind of cool because I have people tell me, my therapist told me about you, or this person told me about you, and that person, because I don't really advertise. I get referrals from doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists. I mean, I get referrals from all over. I mean, the Catholic nun, she tried doing trauma therapy through the church, and it was so upsetting that she tried to take her life. It was really sad. And someone in the community told her about me. And it was sad because she couldn't even tell the church that she was seeing me. She was like, they can't know that I'm seeing you because you're a hypnotherapist. They think you work with the devil. And I'm like, are you serious? She was like, yeah, you can't tell them that I'm coming to see you. Her spiritual advisor, which I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, because she's supposed to only talk to God, right?
Correct.
Oh man, I can't even imagine. So that's great. That's a great story. It's it reminds me of the same thing. So I'm my passion, my side hustle is endurance coaching. And I have, I hold a roster of about 15 people. Most of them are over the age of 40. Some of them, actually, most of them are over the age of 50. And they do things like marathons. And like I've got a client doing a 100-miler this weekend, running 100 miles. I've got people that do Ironmans, half Ironmans, the whole bit, right? That's my thing. I love getting people to the finish line. And a lot of people I have are bucket listers. So my business model is get them to the race. Now I've got about 5 people that are habitual racers, and I just keep training them, and that's fine. Because I like to me, I find that people can make their next steps in their life, or they can level up by doing something hard. That's something they never thought they could possibly do. Like I talk to people about, hey, for instance, somebody that wanted to lose weight and get fit and couldn't figure it out, and the diets weren't holding and this. And so she found doing Ironman, didn't swim, didn't bike, didn't run, and said, I'm going to do an Ironman. So instead of focusing on those goals of losing weight and getting fit, no, I'm going to focus on getting to the start line and getting to the finish line. And that stuff all that stuff will happens on the way. I mean, the weight fell off of her. She was 250 pounds at 5'1". 18 months later, she stood on the start. She was 120 pounds in a size extra small wetsuit.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, that's the type of thing that I like people to do. And people come to me and they would probably do better internally with you, but I get them started externally.
Right.
And so a lot of times it's like, I'm feeling stuck. I just need to do something different. We map things out. We're like, all right, well, what have you done athletically in your life? How about we go after this marathon? I've never run before in my life. Well, we start with a 5K and we just build up. And then when you're ready to do it, you go do it. And they learn so much about themselves on the way up. Yes, I have done as a coach. I wouldn't call it therapy, but I listen. And I do get them a lot of their internal stuff they talk to. I've gone to funerals with people for their loved ones and stuff like that. And I'm their coach. But I've also gone to like Eagle Scout awards and graduations and stuff like that. But what I'm stating is that's the hard work, right? And I think like that's the external stuff that might help you internally. And what you do is internally that might actually help. That somewhere down the line, the fringe benefit is going to be helping them externally.
Yes, because I remember working with one guy where he's like, I'm the fittest man in the gym, but when I leave my personal trainer, I am thinking, what can I go home and binge on?
Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I've worked with people where they would eat a pint of ice cream every night. And after 1 or 2 sessions with me, that same ice cream has been in the fridge for 3 months. Wow. And they just completely forget about it. I've had people that would eat constant junk food, was addicted to caffeine or to soda or to sugar or to chocolate, and they get a sense of control. I mean, here in Oregon, they have a chocolate festival every year. And there was one lady that was so scared to go because she's like, every time I go, I just eat way too much chocolate and then I beat myself up. And I told her, I said, don't be nervous. Go and eat the chocolate, but just go and enjoy and see how you do. And she came back and she was like, I had the best time. I ate chocolate, but I didn't overindulge. And I was satisfied with a little bit here and a little bit there. And I didn't need to binge. And I said, that's a mindset. Just because it's a festival doesn't mean it's the opportunity to go, haywire. It's like, just because it's a buffet doesn't mean you have to eat everything in the buffet.
Right. That's amazing. So just for everybody's information, Kerie's website is mastertheupperrooms.com.
Yep.
So of course I have to ask where you came up with that and what is the relevance of it?
So I did write another book called Affirming and Focusing on Living a Better Life. I wrote that in 2012. And I woke up one day and this higher power said, you're going to write this book and here's the table of contents. go to your computer and start typing.
That's amazing.
So I went there and I started typing the book. When I got to the chapter about the thoughts of our emotions, I learned about human consciousness and how all of our thoughts and emotions have a vibrational set point. I was like, this is fascinating. And I was guided to go online and look it up. Well, science matched what I, let's say, downloaded. And Dr. David Hawkins created the map of human consciousness. And I tried to get a hold of him to tell him, do you know what you got, what you found? And he died that year. So I was really disappointed. So I was guided, no, start coaching people off of that philosophy. Find out where their set point is and raise them up to 40 human consciousness and then even up to 5. And I started doing that. And people had amazing results. There's one woman that did so well. She wanted to attract an investor. She's actually on the Gaia channel. She's worked with royalty and everything now. But I helped her manifest an investor that in 18 months gave her $9.8 million.
What?
Yep. And then the founder of lifecoachspotter.com, when he had 100 coaches on there, he contacted me and said, there's something different about you. And I want to make you a proposition. I want you to coach me. And I will give you all the clients that come in for 6 months if you coach me. And I said, okay, I'll do it. Well, I coached him so well that he was able to put his stuff in storage and travel the world with his wife for a year. And I even coached his wife once where I said, you have 2 babies that are coming in, but your job doesn't allow you to do it. What's more important, your career or a family? Because that's what they're telling me. And she was like, oh my God, how do you know this? Long story short, they have 2 beautiful children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she made that leap. So where Master the Upper Rooms comes is in October of 2023, I had a big spiritual awakening, you can call it. I had visions and I was told, you're going to teach this. You're going to teach people about human consciousness and how to raise their vibration, how to achieve the ascension process. And I literally saw steps going up and it says this, and this is going to sound weird, Brad, but it was like, no, this is the roadmap to the kingdom of heaven, because the kingdom of heaven is not a place. It is a state of consciousness, a state of being. Because when you think about Jesus, he was unconditional love. He was forgiving. He was the presence of peace. He was joyful. He was not judgmental. He was friends with prostitutes. And yes, there was times where he got angry, like all of us do, but he was able to stay in that vibrational range of being a peaceful, loving human being. And so that's what Master the Upper Rooms comes from, is that it's us learning how to master ourselves, to master forgiveness in all areas of family, let's say our thoughts about money, our job, our relationship with other people. It's about acceptance. It's about having wisdom and understanding when you face adversity or conflicts. It's how to get out of that victim mentality and get up here. And it's pretty powerful work. And I've done it with several people. And I mean, I can get someone that is stuck in anger and fear all the way up to, forgiveness and joy in 20 minutes. And they're like, how the hell did you do that? And I said, I just knew the questions to ask you. And I went off of your responses and I just walked you up the steps.
Wow. That's powerful. And you may have just gotten a new client. So that's amazing. Yeah. So I'm looking at this and you've got like baseline and then the top rooms, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment.
I was told, draw this, say this, put this in there. If you go online and you look up the map of consciousness, you get very brief descriptions, but I was told, no, you need to put the details in it. And it's free. The images are free. You see these?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, for example, this is 3D human consciousness. The first one is shame. That vibrates at 20. The third one is guilt. That's at 30. And it's trying to figure out, where are you stuck in the range of the frequency of 20 to 175? Where are you stuck? And how can I get you up to 40 human consciousness? And that very first step is courage. The courage to do something different. The courage to be permitting to see both sides. It's not black and white anymore. And to look at, instead of personalizing what's going on, taking the blinders off and looking at it bigger. So here's just a good example. One of my very good friends recently got divorced and did not realize the person he was with was so toxic. She love bombed him so well. And I looked at him and I said, do you realize she gave you a gift? And he's like, what? She only gave me hell. I said, no, she gave you a gift. Do you want to know what it is? And he said, what? I said, she brought you closer to God than you've ever been before. And he said, oh my God, you're right. Yeah. He said, I walk with God every day now, because for the past few years, I've been praying and praying and praying. And I said, that's a beautiful thing, because you could have grabbed a bottle and drank your sorrows away. You could have went into gambling, porn addiction, whatever. You didn't do any of that. You took the high road. And because before I said, God probably was your takeout order person. Only when you're in distress do I go pray. But no, you were doing it on a regular basis. You started changing things in your life to be a better person because of her. And all of that is a gift. But he couldn't see it. He was really stuck in this mindset. And I said, so instead of feeling guilt and shame that you can't help her because she doesn't want help, she doesn't want it, send her blessings every day and thank her for the gift that she gave you. Thank her.
Yeah. That's, and I love that way of like turning the experience that you perceive it and then turning around and going, well, wait a second. I learned something out of this.
Yes.
Gained a lot of knowledge out of this. And there are steps I'm going to take to feel better that are actually going to help me out in the future. No, I mean, what a lesson learned. You know what I mean? That's incredible. So the podcast is also called Master the Upper Rooms.
Yeah, it's called Master the Upper Rooms. And I interview spiritual people on there and a lot of coaches. And I do my own material as well. And it's just really trying to help people to shift their consciousness, to shift their perspective out of feeling sorry for themselves or depressed or having anxiety or fear or anger. How can I get myself unstuck and find the lessons and the blessings that are within those experiences? Because I always say everyone is a student and everyone is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all are. And I mean, have you heard about the rules for being human?
It's the rules for being human.
This is on the website too. So I'll read it really quick. Rules for being human. The first one is you will receive a body. You may not like it or you might, but it's going to be with you your entire round here on earth. Number 2 is you will learn lessons. Yep, you enrolled in a full-time informal school called life, and each day you have the opportunity to learn lessons. Number 3 is there are no mistakes, only lessons, only lessons. Number 4, a lesson is repeated until it is learned. Number 5, learning lessons does not end. Number 6, there is no better than here. Number 7, and this is hard for people, others are merely mirrors of you.
That goes right with.
Yep. And number 8 is what you make of your life is up to you. And then number 9 is the answer lies inside you. And that's what I help people do, is find those answers inside of you that you haven't explored yet. Because a lot of times we don't stop and become self-aware of, yes, that was a blessing. Yes, she gave me a gift. He had this really rigid mindset, and like, no, let's open the door and look at it differently.
Yes. I think one of the biggest gifts that I was ever given was, it stuck with me for some reason, but someone told me, he says, you're not really self-actualized. And I was like, I know who I am. I know what I can do. And then I sat down and I really thought about it. And I think it took me like 2 or 3 months of me just kind of dwelling on it to realize that, no, you're not self-actualized. I am now, because I thought about it, and all the untruths, lies that I would tell myself. I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. It's not that you're not good. You are good. But there are certain things that you tell yourself that are not true, and you're telling yourself to make yourself feel better, when the truth could do the same thing, because it gives you a lesson to learn and something to strive for. But yeah, so that was and that kind of goes right with those 9 lessons. And the one lesson that you said, there's no other place but here.
There's no better place than here.
Live in the moment.
Yes. So when you're there in the past, really, your past is like still stuck in your face. And if you're a daydreamer out into the future all the time,
right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So be here. So, and I'll give you one anecdote and then we will say goodbye. When I used to go run, I still do once in a while, but it's more because there are things that I want to get done. But I always run to music. And I would go into the music and I think about the music and anything but running. Then I read a few things and started thinking about how running could be more meditational and stuff. But then I started running in the moment. And all of a sudden it was like every step, every breath, everything. And I used to not do that because I used to think, well, that's just going to make the run feel like it's forever and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden that didn't happen. The more I stayed in the moment, every step, every breath, every arm swing, every leg up, the faster it went. And it was just like, it was amazing. And all of a sudden I started seeing things I never saw before.
Yeah.
And it was quite intuitive. Now, I don't do that every time now, because like a lot of times I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts but it's more about getting something done while I'm out there, or gaining some knowledge while I'm out there, which I think is good. But I still, I run 5-6 days a week, and at least 4 of them I'm on there, and that's just me and the road. But I thought so that really resonated with me, that there's no other better place than here.
Yeah, it is, because I always tell people, when you have a problem, don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as an opportunity to go within and explore of, why is it a problem? Yeah. And a lot of times the problem is just our misconception, or the way that we're thinking about something or viewing something. And it's really becoming self-aware of, how is that impacting you?
Right.
I mean, if it's making you feel what I call 3D human consciousness, which is anger, fear, and anxiety, that's toxic to the body. Do you really want to put toxic thoughts in yourself? Or would you rather have the courage to face it head on and maybe just agree to disagree?
Yeah.
Let the little things go. I mean, seriously, sometimes we put so much into those little petty things. We can make little molehills into mountains, and it's just not, it hurts you, and it's not worth it. I mean, that literally creates dis-ease within the body. I mean, there's so many books out there.
Yeah.
Oh, fabulous book. Whenever anyone comes to me with health issues, I pick up that book. And here's one fascinating thing. So Louise Hayes wrote the book, Heal Your Body. And there was a moment I was working with a woman with arthritis. And when I read that probable cause and the affirmation to say, I looked at her and I said, I can't read this affirmation. It won't work for you. And she's like, why? And I said, well, you just sat here and you told me you hate yourself. You hate your body. You're so angry. And it wants me to say, I love myself. And she started laughing and she's like, yeah, you're right. I can't say that. And I said, but what if you said this? Every day I'm making peace with my body. Every day I'm going to find something to appreciate about my body. And every day I'm doing something good for my body. Can you say that? And she's like, yes, I can say that. And I said, okay, that's square one. We're going to start baby steps and we're going to move it up, to where you start to appreciate yourself and you find gratitude in the world around you. Because she was just angry, hated everybody, hated everything.
Yeah, that pessimistic quality, that'll kill you. The skepticism and the cynicism is the word I was looking for. It will absolutely destroy you. It is toxic, absolutely toxic. But anyway, well, hey, listen, Kerie, this has been fascinating. And I know that you and I could probably go on for hours and keep talking about it because it's so fascinating. And I really enjoyed the physical mind, the connection and the back and forth that we had. I think it was amazing. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it. So, but for all of you that have been listening and you listening to Kerie and her absolute, her knowledge and her wisdom, mastertheupperrooms.com. That is her website. And
I'm on YouTube as well.
And YouTube. And her podcast is also called Master the Upper Rooms. So you've got a plethora of ways. Are you on any socials? You are on socials.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn.
So
there's lots of places. You can email me and you could Google me. My name is spelled differently. It's Kerie. Kerie. Yeah. You want Insight Timer meditation app? I'm on that as well. And I got
Insight Timer meditation. Okay. Yeah. That's unbelievable. So you've got a plethora of ways to get a hold of Kerie. Slide into her DMs, email her, go into put a comment down on one of her YouTubes, and then you said that you've got a free or a 15-minute consultation, and you can talk
to chat with me, either over Zoom or over the phone. Just, send me a message and say, hey, I'd like a free consultation. And if I can't help you, I'll tell you and I'll give recommendations or suggestions. If I feel like I can help you, then I'll tell you, okay, this is what I can do, or this is the approach that I would take. And that seems to give a lot of people peace of mind when I say, okay, based on what you shared, I need to do this, this, and this. And to me, that's the important thing. It's just finding a good match to help someone overcome whatever's keeping them stuck.
Yeah. And then, which is basically the whole reason for this podcast in the first place, is that it's one thing resonated with you, with some of the things that Kerie said, then we've done our job. You've got that one nugget that you could take action on and to level up and hit your potential. We've done our job. And that's the whole idea of Life Changing Challengers. But Kerie, thank you. Thank you so much. For all of you listening, I'm going to have all of those links in the show notes. We're going to have her book, Affirming and Focusing on Living a Better Life. And we're going to have that linked in right to the book and on Amazon, so you can pick that up. I mean, all this stuff is just a wealth of information. If you're watching this podcast and on YouTube, then do us a favor and go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe and hit the bell so you always know when we have a new episode dropping. If you're listening on Apple, hey, you know what? If you go to the app or when you get home, check on your computer and give us a little review. And you know what? I don't even care if it's a good review. It could be a bad review because all it's going to help me do is evolve the podcast. Same thing on Spotify. And Spotify actually now has comments. So you don't have to leave a review. You can just add a comment and just tell us how we did. Tell us what you thought, what you took away from it. And maybe, you know what? Go ahead and give us what your blocker is right now. But for that, for Kerie, for myself, for Life Changing Challengers, I really appreciate you listening, watching, and we will see you in the next one.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Life Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.